Nice try, Sedge. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 151 of the Greatest Woodworking Podcast, agreed upon by upwards of 12 people. The Green Suitors Podcast. We have a great episode tonight. We'll get into that in a moment. First, we want to welcome all of our new patrons since last week's episode, and that is nobody. However, we will be giving something away to a patron today because our giveaways are for our patrons and our patrons only. If you guys want to enter or you want your chance to win, you got to go to patreon.com/Green Suitors Podcast. Sign up at any level and you will have your chance. But tonight, we will be doing a giveaway and announcing this month's participant in the giveaway. Let's cover this month's new sponsor. And that is one of our patrons, believe it or not, everybody, Mr. Matt Hickman, who will be at our meetup. So we're going to get to thank him in person next month. But him and a friend of his, Andy, asked if they would be able to sponsor this month's giveaway, giving away 4 $50 Amazon gift cards, which works perfectly because it just so happens they run a page on Facebook. It's a group with over 20,000 members. It's called Woodworking Deals Online. And what they do is tools that they use, tools that they trust, good deals that they find. They post these deals when they find them. And apparently they post multiple times a day. Great group, growing very fast. So go check it out. If you guys are interested in that, go to the search Woodworking Deals Online.
Man, I'm going to check it out. That sounds cool.
Yeah. They do a lot of like Amazon hot deals. Like, you know, Amazon does like daily stuff. But it's so great that they're giving away the $450 gift cards for that specifically. You can use it on woodworking deals or whatever you want. But 4 of our patrons are going to win. So thank you, Andy and Matt. But without further ado, it's time, Sedge. Tonight and every episode leading up to the epic meetup, which is going to be which is going to be amazing. We are giving away, thanks to our friends over at Woodpecker's Tools, one of the Woodpecker's mini squares. Sedge is holding it up right now for those of you that are not watching the YouTube version of this.
It's a
Should we
special
spin?
it's a special anodized red edition.
Yes.
Yeah, special one. Unlike any of their other tools, this one is red and it is aluminum.
And it's in a designer MDF case.
Yes.
And it'll fit in your pocket in the case.
Yes.
That's convenient.
Yes. And it's airplane approved.
Yes.
Yeah. Here, I don't know. You may not be able to get that on an airplane. They'd be like, what is this? All right, let's go ahead and spin this bad boy.
So what's
Who do you
really cool, I'll just say this as it's spinning. Woodpeckers, we have patrons on the Green Suitors Podcast that listen every week. They work for Woodpeckers and they will work for Blue Spruce and they will be at the con with us.
That's so
They will be.
They're excited.
Guess who won? I'll give you a
who?
hint.
Okay.
He was recently on Festool Live.
That would be Eric Curtis.
No, Dave Embry.
Yeah, Dave won.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna have to get
That's
his.
wicked cool.
I'm gonna have to get his. Yeah, he was literally just here in town.
And you know who he's married to?
Gwen, who was our newest
Gwen.
patron, which I
okay,
believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
I covered that.
Gwen.
I covered that last week, right? The
Yeah,
Gwen
I know,
signed
but
up?
the
Yeah.
Gwen is
Yep.
where I made the connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so cool. We're going to have such a good time.
Gwen and Dave. All right, enough of us yapping about the same things that we always talk about in the beginning of the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest tonight, and this person is going to drop some knowledge bombs on us for the entire episode. It is Miss Kim Brown with Gerstner Sons out of Dayton, Ohio. Kim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So glad
to
that
be
you're
here.
here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So
Should be fun.
let me before we get into it, I just want to mention to the audience. So I met Kim at the Makers Ultimate Challenge, and Gerstner happened to be a sponsor for that. And I found that really interesting because I had never heard of the brand Gerstner until I met Patrick, which we all here know very well. His wonderful wife, Michelle, bought him one from like 1942, maybe 1941. I know it was the 1940s. Founded it probably like an Amish thrift shop and got it for him. And I remember seeing it. I was really blown away. And I know I shared that story with you, but that's kind of how we got to talking, and you showed me around the tools. And then I found out that you played golf, and we got to enjoy a wonderful last day out on the golf course. That was fun.
Yeah. We'll have to definitely do that again because I need to redeem some of my shots there.
Yeah, no problem. So Kim, why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody what you do, and
Okay,
from there.
I'm Kim Brown, and I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Gerstner, and I'm also a co-owner. So my brother and myself and my mom own the company. We're a privately owned company. My great grandfather, Harry Gerstner, started the company in 1906. So he actually was a pattern maker by trade. So he was working through his apprenticeship, and he was making 6 cents an hour. And after his 4-year apprenticeship, he got a raise to 10 cents an hour, and he got a $100 bonus for finishing his apprenticeship. So in 1906, that's kind of a big deal because he was making top wages at the time. So he went to his boss and said, hey, I think I'd like, a bigger raise. And he said, or I'm thinking about kind of starting my own company. He had made his own tool chest. Probably around the second or so year of his apprenticeship. And he had some other people kind of remarking how well it was built, and he made kind of 1 or 2 more, but the boss said, I don't believe that I'm going to give you a raise. So he took the $100 and he quit, and he started Gerstner. So he was doing door-to-door sales in the beginning with the Gerstners. People remarked how it was better made than anything that was on the market at the time, because we probably at one point had about 12 competitors or so that were all making wooden tool chests around the time. So the last of them, I would say, died out in the 1960s. They either, closed their shop or they went on to building something else entirely. So Harry Gerstner had decided, it took him about a year to build his first tool chest, but he had decided that a week's wages was a fair price for a tool chest. So the first tool chest that he sold were $6. So in that time, a work week was 60 hours. It wasn't 40 hours. So if you're making 10 cents an hour, it was $6 was your paycheck back then. So we still have kind of the same philosophy of that. If you take an average paycheck, but you add 20 hours of overtime, because now it's not a 60-hour work week, then you can pretty much buy anything in our line. So we've kept to that same principle. We primarily use oak, walnut, and cherry, but we've done some exotic woods also. We're building kits right now, and we started Bolivian rosewood, bird's eye maple, and bubinga also are available as some choices. So we've branched out over the years. I mean, we started out primarily doing machinists and tool and die, pattern makers chests. Dayton, Ohio had NCR headquarters there. So we made repair person kits for the typewriter salesmen and repair people. And when you go back in our archives, it's kind of fun because you find all these odd things that we've done over the years. I mean, we made it through World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all sorts of things. I mean, we made it through COVID. So, but yeah, we had contracts with the government for all sorts of interesting little instrument boxes and stuff like that through World War I and World War II. We've got a couple of those still floating around in our archives. So
now, do you think you had mentioned that there was a lot of competition early on, and it kind of died out around the 60s? Do you think a big part of the die out was, did any of those companies like change their manufacturing to things that were needed during the war? Do you think that the war is just what tanked their business? Because I know you guys obviously made it through all of those.
We did. I mean, the war actually increased in the 40s. That increased our business because all of the metal was reallocated towards war efforts. So the companies that were making metal tool chests at the time kind of suffered. because
Oh,
Kennedy
yeah.
was around then at that time. So I think Union Tool Chest went on to making metal tool chests for a while. And then they completely dropped that line and ended up doing something else. But I mean, we're the only ones that sort of hung on, either through, I don't know, persistence, stupidity. I know. we're just not giving up. But our
That's
customers
so
actually,
cool.
yeah, our customers actually have been a driving force in the change of the things that we've done. So we would have a guy come to us and say, I need to buy another tool chest because my wife, took mine and turned it into a jewelry chest. So,
Yeah.
now I need something else. And they're like, why don't you build tool chests? Or jewelry chests. Okay, let's build jewelry chests now. My dad at one point said, I'm never going to build a roll around. If you want to roll around for your box, go buy a Kennedy. And then all of a sudden people said, I've got this Gerstner chest and I've got a base and I'm not putting it on a metal piece of crap. So, build me one of those. Okay. So we make roller units now too. And we're getting into furniture. So that's going to be our latest thing. So that's going to be debuting later this month at a Lancaster, Pennsylvania furniture show. So.
Wow.
So we keep evolving.
Wow.
Is there any other details on like what kind of furniture? Is it kind of close hold right now? Because
it's actually going to be mostly tables. So it's going to be end tables, coffee tables, sofa tables, nightstands, along the lines of what we really know how to do. We're going to be doing an interesting design, something that nobody has done yet, and that's going to debut. So I'm not going to talk too much about it.
Right.
But it's a design that nobody has, and an interior designer can work with it and switch out some of what's on the top of the chest. They'll
cool.
be able to put, say, tiles in it or fabric in it, or if somebody goes to the beach and collects shells and things like that. So we've done some tables in the past, but we've never really come up with a particular line of them. We had a coffee table that was big enough that had a drawer that would slide in and out that could fit a guitar. So if you want a coffee table with some knickknacks or knives or display old tools, things like that. So we're bringing some of that stuff back too. And then the tables will also be customizable. So you can add a shelf, you can add 2 drawers, you can actually have power go to it. You can, have it be a smart table. So.
So the motivation. Oh, go ahead, Sedge. I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, over the years, I've seen Gerstner chests everywhere. They're so iconic. Whether I'm tooling around in an antique store or I'm in a buddy's shop who's a machinist. All right. I understand the diamond mirror.
Mhm.
Okay. Why did you have them in machinist chests? Is there a story behind that?
Yeah. Gerstner started before most companies had indoor plumbing. So if you got at your workstation, if you happen to get a fleck of metal or something in your eye, there was really nowhere to go to be able to get it out. So you had basically your own little eye wash station there. You got to remember, I mean, we've got pictures of the workers where they used to work in ties, so at the end of the day, comb your hair, before you go or something like that. And it's just been sort of a mainstay of what Gerstner has been all about. And we've just kept it. So
that is so cool. Thank you.
neat.
I'm so glad I did this podcast tonight. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, that's the kind
That's
of
awesome.
fun, interesting facts that, because most people now that don't know anything about the history, myself included, until tonight, which is why I was so adamant about getting you on here, I had no idea. Like, I probably wouldn't even have asked, why it was a diamond shape, but who knew that's something that has just always been there and it's always been a part of it, and like, why change it when that's like actually a very iconic part about the tool chest itself.
It's sort of a signature look. I mean, people have copied it. The other manufacturers of chests, they would have a mirror in there also. It typically would be round, or it might have wood that held it in there instead of the metal frame, or it could have been rectangular. I mean, not everybody did the same thing. Gerstner, I mean, he kind of tilted it up on a diamond sort of shape. We used to have on the knobs, there used to be what we called little back plates behind them. Some of the really old chests you can find still have those. Some of the original ones, and I'm talking from the teens into the 20s and stuff, had diamond shaped back plates.
Oh,
if
wow.
if you find one of those, snag those. Those are from the 1920s. So
Yeah.
they're hard to come by. And we offer a refinishing service too.
I was going to say
Because-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the chest. They'll come back typically after 40 or 60 years of usage. They'll come back and they'll do refinishing. It tends to skip a generation. So most people will inherit their Gerstner from their grandfather,
Mhm.
because by the time, they can't give it to the father, because by the time the father enters the workforce, the grandfather's still particularly working. So the
Ah.
grandson or granddaughter usually ends up getting it. And by that point, they'll send it in for a little bit of refinishing or change it into a jewelry chest or, do something with it. So
Mm.
it's just, Gerstner is an investment. It really is. People say that they're so expensive. Why would I get one of those? Well, are you still driving the same car that you had 40 years ago or 60 years ago? Did your grandfather give you, a car that is still working every single day? The drawers in and out, they slide back and forth. Things that you put in a wood chest won't rust. The
Mm.
felt and the wood is always seeking to maintain kind of an equilibrium, as you guys know. And we build them differently in the summer and the winter because we don't have a temperature controlled shop. So we use different gauges. So, because we don't know where they're going. So in the
Mhm.
summertime, obviously things, have expanded more. In the wintertime, it's going to contract. So the gauges, because we individually hand fit every single drawer to the chest that it goes to. So if you ever pick up a chest and you open up the drawers and you look on the back of them, you'll see a set of typically 3 numbers and then a dash, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or something like that. And that's the drawer's position. And the 3-digit number is the chest itself. So you'll see that number written inside the bottom of the box on the back of the drawers, because all of the pieces parts, they don't travel together in production the entire way. So you got to be able to get those back together in the final inspection process and finishing.
And each drawer is hand fitted for each chest.
Yep.
That is amazing.
Yep. I used to work in that
Wow.
department.
No kidding.
Yeah. I didn't start out doing sales. I would have liked to, but
Yeah.
I actually, when my dad purchased the company from his great uncle, to back up a little bit, it's kind of a fun story. It's named H. Gerstner Sons, and Harry Gerstner named it before he was ever married or had a family. So he wanted it to sound established. And one could argue his father, Herman Gerstner, who was a cooper, he was a barrel maker,
yeah.
had sort of taught him about woodworking. So one could argue that he named it sort of in honor of his father because he employed both of his brothers at one point.
Huh.
So by the time he did get married and he had a family, he had 3 daughters, no sons.
That's cool.
So Charlotte Campbell was the eldest of the girls, and that was my grandmother.
Oh,
So-
cool.
So
Wow.
That's cool.
Wow.
her husband was going to work in the business. He was going to work on taking over the business, but he died when he was 50. So the next person in line was Harold Leland, who was the youngest daughter's husband at the time. And when he decided he wanted to get out of the business, my dad, who had worked there when he was a kid, also decided that he would like to buy the company from him. And we moved back to Ohio in 1976. So
Wow.
when I was a kid, I used to be paid a penny a piece to stuff envelopes and do mailers and stuff for the company. So, God, I was probably at that point 76. I'd have been about 7 years old. So
Yeah.
I've been there a long
Wow.
time. I've been there full time since 84. So
Wow.
Well, now, when did you
Not-
take over the position that you're in now?
vice president of sales, I have been in that position for probably a good 17 or 18 years at least.
Oh, wow.
Oh, actually more than that. It's been more like 25 or so, because in 20 years ago, I started our international division. So our import division of the Gerstner Internationals turned 20 this year. So
You guys are available worldwide then?
Mhm. Yeah.
No restrictions.
Mm-mm. No,
Wow.
I have a division of Gerstner also that we started. There's a lot of knockoffs that you can see on Amazon and things like that people, right down to the diamond mirror. They've just flat out copied them. So, and there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, patents and stuff like that, they only last 17 years. We originally patented the lid pin design. When you fold up the front lid and you close the top, there's a little pin that comes down and
Yep.
traps that front lid. Well, we patented that in 1913. Patent's long gone, so people can
Yeah.
obviously copy that. But we were getting phone calls and they were not very nice about, hey, I bought this piece of garbage from XYZ and, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, well, nothing, because we didn't build it. So we figured that there's obviously a market because people were, kind of copying it. So we went about partnering with somebody and controlling the level of quality. We don't make the exact same thing in the United States. We're not intending to replace the United States stuff. We brought it in to be sort of like, I would say, a Chevy versus a Rolls Royce. So everybody can afford the Chevy. Everybody's driving the Chevy. You see those all over the place, but you don't see a Rolls Royce very often. So it actually ended up increasing our business overall, and we had to hire more people in the United States to be able to handle all of the boxes that were coming in, because we do secondary inspections. So we have them made overseas, they get here, we do secondary inspections, and they are only sold through dealers. So that was also an appeal also to get dealers, is because, we don't sell them direct. The only ones we sell direct are what we call the seconds, or the blemished items, because we won't sell those through dealers. But that
now, is that
division-
only overseas? That rule
No, they're
applies?
sold in the US.
But
No,
those
but
are,
I'm saying, like,
but
people could buy direct in the US.
Oh, no, they have to buy through a dealer.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
I
same
have,
thing.
I have dealers. Yeah. I have one dealer who lists his items on Amazon. I have Garrett Wade, the woodworking
Yep.
catalog.
Yep.
Garrett Wade carries them. Rockler has some, Woodcraft has them. So Woodpeckers also has carried some of the kits. So
and those are always noted by international, right, on the tag.
yes, it
They
reads
say it-
Gerstner International on the tag.
So it's clear that it's not the same.
And we make it
Yeah.
only in red oak. So
Oh,
in
gotcha.
the USA, we make it out of quarter sawn white oak or walnut or American cherry or hickory or maple or whatever we've done over the years. But the internationals are only made in red oak.
And you sell the ones made in the USA, from all those species, you sell those direct. The Rolls
Absolutely.
Royces.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We sell those
perfect.
direct because there's so many different options that you can get. There's
Yeah.
different felt colors you can choose. There's different hardware you can choose. We do custom. We do OEM stuff also. I mean, we private label brand things for people. So,
Wow.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
So somebody could have a special edition, Sedge Tool branded Gerstner chest that was
Yep.
limited to, 10 units or 20 units. I'm sure that you guys
Yeah.
probably have some sort of minimum requirement on that, but
one, we won't sell a half or make of one. So, like in the 1960s, we built mahogany chests for Starrett. So
Ah,
Starrett has their nameplate on those. Those are hard to
Cool.
come by. There was a company called Best Made a couple of years ago, and Peter's bringing it back. They were a catalog, kind of a high-end outdoorsy catalog. We made custom chests especially for them. We've made chests for Brookstone. We've done things for Brownells. We've done things for Cabela's. We have made when charging stations, putting something, where you hit all of the cords and stuff like that. We made that for Frontgate. So
Wow.
they're an outdoor catalog also. So there's something, that you could have that doesn't even have the Gerstner name on it that we very well could have built. So
Oh,
it's funny.
that's incredible.
I know it's going through both Ronnie and Sedge's mind because it's going through mine as well. Special
Yeah.
edition
yeah.
Green Suitors Con version.
there you go.
Yes. Yes.
So obviously the motivation to build the chest, your great grandfather, right, builds this chest. That then becomes this business, which I think is so funny because I think if you talk to a lot of people that make a custom product, a perfect example of that, I'll say it again, is my good friend, or our good friend Patrick and Michelle, with the leather aprons that they make. Kind of the same thing. It was like Patrick wanted an apron and she knew how to sew, and she makes this apron, and then it just evolves into this thing, and it's this really nice, higher ticket item. I think it's fascinating that just something like that becomes this massive corporation. And then it ended up being, because this is something you told me. And before I say this, because I want you to share this story a little bit, but for those that don't know that are listening, correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but you're also the resident historian for the company.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you know, like every bit of history, every tool chest, everything.
Just about. Yeah.
You had mentioned something to me back in the day. It was like a staple. If somebody came to a work site that they would essentially, if they were carrying a Gerstner chest, it was like a no-brainer, like you're hired. Um,
Yeah,
do you?
it got to be so well known that once upon a time you had to have your own tools and your tool chest for the job site. I mean, it's not something where the company provided all of that stuff. So when you went in for an interview, you carried that stuff with you. And Gerstner got to be known to the point that, if somebody showed up with a Gerstner and they'd say, hey, open the drawer or something, like the story that Izzy told, just open a drawer, let me look in there, let me see one of your tools, you're hired. I don't even need to know
Yeah.
what you do. You're hired, because somebody that had a Gerstner had reached the echelon of his career. I mean, they basically, they knew how to take care of tools. They knew what they were doing. It was sort of a source of pride. So, I mean, we still have a chest that's called the apprentice chest. So we've got a chest that's called the journeyman chest. So
Do you think, because like I feel like it's a lot different now, right? With the invention of all these, great organizational systems and within a particular line of tools, Festool, Milwaukee, the trade's not quite being, I guess, what they used to be. Maybe I'm not saying that properly. Do you think that that's had an effect on the sales of Gerstner, or is it just shifted
100%.
to a different? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we've had to shift focus. So I would say a lot of who buys our items these days are home hobbyists. Now, whether that hobby is woodworking, or that hobby is fly fishing, or the hobby is slot cars, modeling, just collecting stamps, collecting knives, collecting something, anything that needs to be organized into a space. For example, fly fishing is a very messy hobby. So you've got all these little feathers and all these little fine tools and stuff. And guys will tend to, want to do that out on the dining room table or something like that. Can you imagine the arguments that go on about trying
Yeah.
to clean that up? Well, here now we make a fly tires chest, and no wife or other person, in a relationship is going to complain when you put all your things back and you put that off to the side. It can sit in a dining room. It becomes, Gerstners have actually become a sort of functional art.
Yeah.
So
They're
it can sit in
piece of
any room in the
furniture.
house, and not be like, oh God, there's that smelly tool chest again, or there's, something like that. So we focused on the fact that they are sort of an investment. They're an art in and of itself. And there's a fascination, I think, with sort of bygone times, things that look vintage, things that look, sort of old and cool. And so
I was
Go ahead, Ronnie.
I was going to say, I was really curious whenever, because it's hard for me to put my mind back that far, like back when he started the company. And I looked it up a second ago to see what $100 was back then. And it said it was equivalent of $3,700, because I was trying to figure out like, what was that he walked away with? And I didn't go any farther with that, but I assume that's like, I assume houses back then were like 15, 20,000, maybe. I don't know, 10, 15. That was a substantial amount of money that he walked away with. I was
yeah,
trying to
the
get an idea.
$100. Yeah.
So it was enough for him to feel confident enough to say, I'm going to start this company. It's just, it's mind boggling to me that was like the difference in the.
Yeah. And I think it's mind boggling also, because if you think about it, he was renting and leasing space to be able to do stuff. And he started the company in 1906. He formally incorporated it. Well, we incorporated it in 1953, but he started the company in 1906. And then in 1913, he was pouring the foundation for the building where we stand today. 1914, he moved in.
Wow.
So in just that short amount of time, he was able to build a 3-story brick building to be able to house his items. And we've had upwards of, I think, 40 people in production. And about every 20 years, we'd add on to the building. So
So is it just luck that the building has been able to stay where it is now? Because you know how much development and things can happen from that time on.
We have
And
seen so much build up and tear down around us.
Hmm.
are you
It's
in an
incredible.
industrial area, or is it like, does your building stand out as one of the ones that are the old buildings and there's a lot of new around you? How is that?
It's interesting. There's nothing right next to us right now. We're right on the levee. So there's a little river that runs through downtown. The only buildings that are around us right now are part of Sinclair, and there's a trade school right across the street from us, and then there's a hospital across the highway. So there's two highways that intersect right where we are. It's Route 35 and I-75. I could basically throw a
Okay.
stone and hit them. So
Okay.
there was a paper mill right next to us at one point that, kind of crumbled down, and then they finally tore it down. At one point, there was 100 years flood, and that was in 1913. Harry only had the foundation laid, so he was one of the first buildings up and running in 1914 after that massive cleanup. So they built this giant levee system so that it would never happen again. And I would say maybe 10 years or so ago, I called up the city because the back wall of our building was starting to cave in a little bit. Well, the levee was built right behind the building, and it obviously started to settle. So it was pushing against the back, and we noticed that the brick was starting to come in. So I called up the city and I said, hey, you guys got to do something about your levee. And they said, that's not our problem. And I said, I believe it is. The building has been here longer than the levee. So she said, well, let me look this up. So I got a phone call back in about a half an hour. They said, we're on our way. So
Wow.
they had to dig out and move the levee back, out of the way of the building. So we used to be on Columbia Street, and then it was named Cincinnati Street. And then because we've had intersections, come, and the road has actually changed around us also. So, and for our 100-year anniversary in 2006, we had petitioned the city to rename the short little end that they cut off by running a brand new road through into Gerstner Way, because we used to be Cincinnati Street, and people would try and find us, and what they had cut off, they'd invariably give us a call, and we'd look out the window and say, well, we can see you. You're gonna have to come all the way around the block and come over this way. So we got it named, and they said they won't name any streets after companies, which is a joke, but so we got it named after Harry Gerstner himself. So the street name is
cool.
now called Gerstner Way. So
Okay.
but yeah,
Well,
it's up and down. So
are you aware of where he lived when he built that?
yes,
How far? Was it close?
he was very close. He was he could have probably walked to work, but it was not very far away. My grandmother was actually born in a apartment building that was just right up the street.
Okay.
So
It's really neat.
Now,
That's
are those locations still around, or have they since been
No.
torn down, rebuilt?
all gone. There used to be houses right up to the property. So we owned out to, I mean, the city came through, and eminent domain took a bunch of the property that we had and created a street that's out in front of us. But that used to all be houses. It used to be nice little houses, and there was a school that no longer exists, Steele High School, that the kids in the area went to. They've since renamed the area Wright Dunbar because of the Wright brothers, and Dunbar was another prominent family, and they're trying to revive it a little bit. But we saw it get really kind of bad around us, and there was a business that closed down right next door to us, and we'd have vandalism every once in a while, and we'd call the cops, and they'd come over, and they're like, I'm not going in there. So so that's no longer there. I mean, we've just dealt with all sorts of things over the years.
So
Wow.
with you saying that, like, what would you say were some particularly rough times for the business, and like what did you guys do to overcome that? Like, are there any that like come to mind, like a particular time? And
The 80s, the early 80s were a little bit tough. There was just, it was 18 some odd percent to buy a house. I mean, it just, the inflation had gone absolutely nuts. So that's when we started kind of marketing different sort of products, because it's like, okay, what doesn't inflation touch? Well, they don't really touch the ultra wealthy. so we started going after different kinds of clientele. We made wooden briefcases that we used to carve with people's yachts on the front of them. So just all sorts of, as a matter of fact, hang on. I brought mine.
Oh,
Oh,
I don't know if you can see that.
almost.
Oh,
Yeah,
hang on.
kind of. With the
Wait, where'd it go?
no, I don't.
Almost.
There
Oh,
it
there it
we
is.
go.
There you go.
Wow.
There it
That
is.
is so cool.
so those
So-
were hand carved. That was before CNC, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's really
The
neat.
guy still, we still have carvings done. So we still sell the attachés, not very many, but so we went to doing different things. So the 80s were sort of a time of excess also. I mean, that's when I was in high school. So I mean, if you did something, you had to do it big. So that was an interesting time. I've read through a couple of the archives thing where World War II came along, and that was interesting because since all the metal was being reallocated to the war efforts, we sort of had to pivot. We couldn't get the knobs, so we changed, and for a period of time we had the knobs made out of Bakelite. So
wow.
if you find some of the old chests that have the Bakelite knobs, that tends to be around the 40s and 50s time frame when we had to pivot on doing some stuff. So we had some rather interesting hardware, shall we say, on the chests during that time, sort of a scrounge and find what we can. COVID obviously was very interesting when the government decided to tell us that we were a non-essential business and we essentially could not operate. So my brother said, yeah, I don't think so. So he and his wife and kids went down and ran production while the employees had to stay home. So if UPS
Wow.
was still allowed to be out and delivering and pick up and stuff like that, then by God, we were shipping and we were still creating. So
Wow. So
Interesting.
you were considered a non-essential.
non-essential business.
Oh,
I would say that our employees would disagree with that.
I totally
Right.
disagree with that.
Considered it pretty essential. So I
Yeah.
mean, we got people back to work as quickly as we could. So, but we had to run, kind of skeleton crews, and with the advent of machinery and stuff, CNCs and things like that, we've been able to replace some operations. Things have actually improved, so you can say a lot of times with things that, hey, things were made better way back when, but I would put any one of our tool chests that come off the line today against anything that's ever been built before. So it just, before you had to do the setups, you had to do the table saws and every single little groove you had to run, one person had to do the operation or two or three people had to do the operation. Now we do a rough cut and, we take it all the way through. The CNC does most of the little cuts, and then you have a person assembling the box, and then you have a person sanding on the pieces, and then you have another person fitting the pieces together, and you have another person spraying the pieces, and you have another person putting the hardware on and then polishing it up, and another person felting. That was me. And another person doing hardware, because I had to work out on the floor before I ever did sales. So I can put one of these things together from start to finish. So
Cool. I have a question. Do you have, because I know I'm a fanatic tool collector. Do you have people who have big collections of Gerstners?
yeah, we have an
Yeah.
owners club. So we have
Oh, no
anybody that
kidding.
owns a Gerstner chest can join our owners club. It's $30 to join, and I think it's $20 a year to maintain the membership, but they get owners club only discounts for hardware and accessories. And we have a newsletter that comes out about 3 times a year. They have their own website where there's some different information on past. You can have all the past newsletters there. Also, we've had products that have been released only to owners club members. So and we do once a year, we have a little get together at the shop. Last year we came out with a whiskey that we did a launch for that. So there's a Craftsman, it's named Craftsman. It's a whiskey. We're going to be redoing second barrel, I think, is coming out this year. I
Worth
think
joining.
Jason saw that. We're working with a company that can actually ship liquor, because we don't have a liquor license, but working with a company that can ship this out. What we did is we partnered with Dayton Barrel Works, who is a local distiller, and we have lasered the front label on it. So it's a wood veneer label on the front of the whiskey bottle.
Oh,
So we
cool.
lasered it, and then on the back of it is the story of Gerstner, a little bit of the story of Gerstner. And so the Owners Club members were invited to that launch, and they could pre-order the whiskey when they came to that. The year before, we worked with a local brewery and came out with a Gerstner Pilsner. So it was a Pilsner that they had come over to the company and grabbed some cherry and grabbed some oak and ended up using it in the fermenting process. So that actually they did, I think, 6 or 7 kegs of that they had done, and they have 3 locations in Dayton, and it ran out in the weekend over the weekend. So just
Wow.
we've partnered with some people to do some different things. But the Owners Club, you have to own a Gerstner chest, and it's either you don't have to buy it if you own a used one or whatever. You send in a picture. Because it requires proof of ownership. So a receipt of where you bought one, or a picture of, one you've inherited or bought or whatever. And then we go from there.
I assume
That
they
is
access
so
that
cool.
through your guys' website.
Yeah, they have their own login.
I
So
need to sign up. Then I can come
Yeah.
down to the party.
yeah, now that you have a Gerstner.
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Are there
Wow.
going back and like obviously you've seen a lot of the stuff and a lot of things have been discontinued. Is there anything that comes to your mind, or multiple products that come to your mind that like you guys tried, it just didn't go well, it was a total flop, and it immediately was taken out of the inventory?
Oh yeah, we've done some tried and failed things where we've only made maybe 20 of something. There's been just little itty bitty projects. In the 1960s, before my dad took over, my uncle, who was an engineer by trade before he got into Gerstner, started what we call the small chest series. And there's a bunch of them out in our front lobby that you can see, but there's all these little teeny tiny chests that are, anywhere from 4 inches by 4 inches by 2 inches to, something that's maybe an inch tall and 7 inches long and, 4 inches deep. And some of them had little compartments in them and dividers and
Wow.
stuff. That series didn't go.
No.
They're cute. I mean, they're
Yeah.
cute,
Yeah.
and we still have some of them, but that didn't really go much of anywhere. I actually have something that I've patented, and we just have not found the right person yet to take it on. It's called a knife niche. So that hasn't really had a fair shake yet, but we patented it about 2 years ago. I just can't find the right partner to go with. It's a cutting board and knife system all in one. So
Oh,
you
wow.
just
Like
you
chef's
put it-
knives?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So and everybody has, kind of their 3 or 4 favorite that they use all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a system whereby that the cutting board is actually on the face of it, and you open that up. It has a magnetic closure on the top, but you open it up and then the knives are hanging on the inside. So you could actually mount that. You can stand it right up against a wall in the kitchen. You could mount it to the end of an island. You could put it in an RV. It's kind of a space saver type thing. But it's, I find myself, I got to get the cutting board. Now, where's my knife? Okay, the knife is over here. So this is just all in one, and you can do one-handed operation on it. I think we have a video of it on our website, on our YouTube channel. It
cool.
shows what the knife niche is. I think it's still up there.
Any other things that come to your mind?
We've had, oh yes, I worked on the line when we did these. We did fabric covered chests for a while. So there were jewelry chests and little curved things. That was actually the 80s also, where people liked all sorts of different floral patterns. So we would actually match certain things custom. If somebody sent us in a swatch or the fabric to their drapes or something, we would make a chest and cover it with that. So
Oh,
it,
wow.
it went for a little while, but it
Hmm.
didn't stay. It was trendy.
Quickly
So if
fell out of
someone-
style.
If someone had one of those fabric covered chests, would they be able to send it to you all for refurbishment? I assume that you didn't worry too much about wood grain when they were fabric covered.
Well,
is
when they're
that-
fabric covered, interestingly enough, we had some. I have several of my own. I've got one downstairs. We bent the wood over, so the substrate that we used was not a fine oak or anything like that. I mean, we could use a ply substrate. We could use
Right.
all sorts of things because we still cover some of the chests in that black leatherette. I don't know if you've seen
Yep.
any
I've
of
seen
those.
leather- Yep.
So the substrate is not going to be a nice oak or anything. It's going to be a plywood, or but the plywood that we use is we have a white oak plywood, or we have a cherry plywood, or we have birch plywood. So it's not you can't walk into, Home Depot is not where we get that stuff. So
Do you have a limitation of what you do when someone asks for refurbishment, in that you possibly will not go beyond what it was before? Is there any kind of rule like that? Like you only restore it back to what, or do you modify them as
no,
well?
we'll modify them. We'll do whatever the
Okay.
customer wants.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Just
I mean,
curious.
that's one of the things Jason and I talked about Instagram and stuff, and I'm getting a crash course in knowing how to do that now. Thank you very much. But some of the stuff that I've been walking around and filming, I filmed, did a little film with what I call our Gerstner Hospital. So it's our little restoration area where we have all the knickknacks and little interesting little things that we use to repair them. And you can see on the shelf that there's some waiting to be started, and there was one in process. And so we've turned them into full-blown jewelry chests, putting in, velour, ring rolls and all sorts of things like that. We've actually, there was a guy that sent in 2 chests that went through a fire, and he wondered if we could refinish them. And they were charcoal. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, my guys are magicians, but I mean, come on. So, so
Right.
we were able to, the front lid had been in the open position when the chest caught fire. So we were able to take some of the wood from the front lid and build a couple of drawer fronts for a replacement chest. So we were able to utilize some of the original, pieces, because it was their grandfather's chest. But, and I ran across a letter actually in my briefcase, because I dug it out, of a guy that, picture of his chest that's all charred, sitting on top of a metal tool chest. And he said all of the items in the metal chest were warped and twisted and bent from the fire, and everything that was in the Gerstner chest was fine. So
Took the heat.
chest itself was a loss, but
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, the
cool.
chest itself. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I'll show it later.
So you're
I had a picture of it.
Kim, it's Gerstner USA on Instagram.
Yes, it is.
Cool. I just followed you. Everybody
good.
listening should follow.
Yeah.
They should. I posted something a while ago of the largest project that we've ever done. It's 7 feet tall, and that's me standing next to it.
Oh,
And then I did a couple of videos.
That. That is so cool.
And then before
I'm
that,
a huge fan.
I did a little quick video showing you one of the tool chests that Harry bought that's with his tools in it. So
Oh,
that
there it
actually
is.
got a lot of traction.
Oh, look at those little pulls on. Oh, look at those. Oh, what does he got in there?
I have another
Sorry.
video. Yeah, I have another video I haven't released yet, where I actually did a
Ooh.
tour of the tool chest, and we
Oh, yeah.
explore
Ooh.
some of his tools.
Molding
And
planes.
He built those planes. He
Really?
had built those planes. Yeah, his name is on those. So I
Oh.
in my next little video, I pulled out one, and you can see where he stamped H. Gerstner on the back. But he built those planes, and they
That
are
is
still
so-
sharp, buddy.
Wow.
Well,
So-
when you started explaining that he was a pattern maker, most pattern makers made their own tools.
Yeah.
And that truly is an amazing art,
Yep.
being a pattern maker.
Yep.
Amazing.
He actually, when he was doing his apprenticeship, he worked at Smith Barney Works in Dayton. So they did all of the intricate woodwork on the inside of the railroad cars that people traveled in. So
Wow.
I've got a couple of little pieces also that I show in one of the videos of the little kind of scroll work and inlay that he used to do. So
Wow.
Cool.
so that's the type of stuff that I'm sort of filming and slow leaking to Instagram.
That's what
good.
I love seeing that, because of how iconic Gerstner is.
Mhm.
And just seeing that it is continuing the way it is amazing.
And I think a lot of people don't know the history. They'll see a picture and they're like, oh, that's cool. That's an old timey tool chest. Why is it almost $2,000? Nope.
Yeah.
That's not, that's not
It's-
anything for me. And it's like, well, you kind of need to know the story about it. I mean,
The
there is
provenance. Yeah.
easily over 300 different operations that go into making each one of those chests.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's
and a
interesting.
couple of them, there's upwards of 1,000. So,
There's a lot of things I've seen as you've been talking that I equate the similarities in watches, and I wondered if y'all have ever made a watch case, because
Great
that's
question.
it's the same thing you could say about watches. People think that some things are crazy, but there's so many hands that touch and parts and pieces.
Mhm.
And you are a business and you have to make money. And when things are handmade, there's just a cost associated with it. And
Mhm.
as you were talking about the different things you've made, that's why I wondered if you all have ever explored like a self-wanding watch case, because
We,
you'd be
yeah, we've
partnering
actually
with,
done them. We've worked with
have you?
Orbita and Wolf before, but here
Okay.
again, we didn't have anybody that picked it up on, a big scale, but we've done a couple of cases where there's a couple of the watch winders that the movements get put inside of them. But one that we did in particular, I think we made 10 of them, but it was a big chest and it had it looked like a tool chest, basically. And it was supposed to be kind of a dresser chest. And then on either side, there were two winders, of the watches that were just sitting in what looked like, a drawer with no face, basically. But then otherwise the chest was just something you could have in a bedroom or a den or something like that. So yeah, we've
That's cool.
done watch winders.
I
So
definitely see that as a customer base that would be strong, just like, especially when you said the yacht briefcase and things. And
mhm.
we talk a lot about on the podcast that I don't ever worry about the economy because there's always people that don't care about inflation and interest
Mhm.
rates. And if you can have some products that can cater to that clientele, there will continue to buy regardless of what's going on. And that's always nice.
It's
Well-
just
No.
partnering. It's partnering with the company that either manufactures the watch or somebody that actually sells a lot of them. That is one of their standout dealers or something that then has the vision to then package it with something like
Mhm.
that, and then create their own little niche of things.
But see, what's interesting about nowadays, like if you are on Instagram, you all can market now to the actual watch collector who has
Mhm.
unlimited income, who doesn't have to buy it from the watch company. They can buy it directly through you all. You don't have to have another company represent. That's kind of a neat thing that's different, I think has changed in the
It is because
marketplace.
we can do custom things. Now, I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
times people don't want to wait, but if you want something built especially for you, then yes, it's going to take some time. So
So
it's just
cool.
like, I mean, if you want to build a house, it's going to take several months. If you want to have us design something custom for you, we can do that. Typically it'll take 45 to 90 days, which is,
Right.
not too long to wait, but
Right.
we've had some interesting things that we've had to do, some angles that we've worked with. There's certain things that we've built that we say, no, we're not doing that again. So, or if we
bet.
do, we're charging a hell of a lot more. So,
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Oh, I know that feeling.
you
Yeah.
know,
About halfway through. Yeah, I think I'm already there. I should have charged a little bit more.
right, right.
so you have machinery there that is original that you still use?
Yeah, we've and in our tool room, you can see the old belt drive system on the ceiling that used to
Oh.
run some of the machinery and stuff. That's still in our tool room, but we've got some table saws that are easily from the 40s and 60s. We've got some drill presses and things like that. So we've
is so
moved some
cool.
of that machinery out into what we call our barn. In the 1960s, we built this big white barn structure basically, and that's used for storage and excess inventory, and so.
There's got to be so much cool stuff in that building.
Oh yeah.
Around
Wow.
every corner, because like I said, the original structure was 3 stories, and then we built on about every 20 years. So we built on the mill area, and then we put a second floor addition, which in our front lobby, it's got a photo and it's got the letter that was the original quote on how much it cost to build it, and it was something crazy like $1.41 a square foot, I think it was. But at the time, was just, I mean, astronomical to do it. And then in the 60s, we built the barn. In the 80s, we built what is our rough cut area. 2000s, we built a covered area in between the barn and the main area because we started to run once a year warehouse sales, and we got tired of renting a tent every year. So, and then 2020, we just enclosed that same carport area because we needed more storage space. So most of our international stuff is housed out in there.
So your original building was built as a 3-story building?
It's still
Is-
3 stories. It just has
Is
arms.
that because of the land limitations, but you needed the square footage? Is that why it was built 3 stories?
It It had things on either side of it. So yeah, Harry only had a small amount of property. And as things kind of got destroyed, knocked down and everything else, he kept up buying the property up around us. So, I mean,
Wow.
we have enough property that if we wanted to keep expanding, we could. It's not very practical. I mean,
Right.
the we occupy the first and the second floor for production. The third floor has now been closed down. That's actually, it's our break room. That's my office. That's so I get to go up and down 3 flights of stairs when I'm there. That's my office, photo booth up there. Actually, when I started, that's where hardware and finishing was. So I used to work on the third floor. So isn't it apropos that I've returned to the third floor now?
Right.
So started there and I'm going to end there. So,
Wow.
but yeah, it's just, you walk around and you look at certain things that we finally, within the last 10 years, I think we put a hoist on the elevator because it used to be hand operated by rope. So every time that we needed to move stuff from floor to floor, there was somebody pulling on that rope and pulley system. So
Mhm.
that's still there.
So-
And
and
I'm
actually-
sure
That's so
I'm
cool.
sure you're in the same situation that a newer business is in, even though you're the age, like you could put $100,000 elevator in,
Mhm.
but that means you have to sell X amount more of product. That means you have to, it all plays into the equation. And it's like, if it works, why invest that? You
If
don't
it
need
ain't
it.
broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
That is
Exactly.
absolutely right.
And I think it applies to any like small like business or locally owned business. Corporations, it does not apply. They
Right.
can say, let's just do this capital investment of $50 billion. And it's like it's something you would never see done in the regular individual owned business, but it somehow makes sense when corporations do it. I just find that so interesting how that is, and how you only probably decided to add on or when you absolutely had to.
Yeah.
Other than
Yeah.
that, it was like, no,
We ran out
we'll
of
make it
space.
work. Yeah, we'll make it
yeah,
work.
we ran out of space. So, I mean, when he did that, I mean, Harry was pretty prosperous within the first, 20 to 30 years, because there's photos of him taking a vacation in Europe and they're offloading his car off of the cruise ship
Oh, that's so neat.
because he took his personal car to Europe for a vacation for a couple of months. And that was
Wow.
in the 1930s. He had just started the
Yeah.
company not 30 years before that. So, I mean, to be doing that well off to take, your family on a month-long European vacation and ship your car with you. So, I
Wow.
mean, that's
That's
reminiscent
still a
of
big
Wow.
deal.
Titanic and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's not, it would be almost not surprising if he was on the Titanic. Sounds like that would have been a trip he could have possibly taken if the schedule made it, right?
Well, he was still pretty new. I mean, 1906 is when he
When was
started.
the Titanic?
1912,
When was the Titanic? Do you know? I don't. it's a-
1912.
1912. Okay.
Yeah.
So that actually also places the time for me because I'm trying to figure out.
Mhm.
And like cars, when did cars become mainstream? Like early
Right
19
around that same time. Yeah, I mean,
That's like Model T.
1909 or so. Well, if you think about it, Harry Ford started his company in 1904.
Okay. Okay. So about the same.
So, and the Wright
Time.
brothers perfected their airplane in 1902, I think it was. So
Amazing.
Orville, there's a little museum around the corner from us, and Orville Wright had a Gerstner chest, and it's on display with his tools in it.
Oh, that's so
Oh,
neat.
wow.
So he was a compatriot of my great grandfather.
That's so
They
neat.
had a bicycle shop, didn't they? Or
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they've redone. There's a place called Carillon Park in Dayton, and when people come visit the factory and stuff. Oh, also, if you're an Owners Club member, you can have a factory tour. Nobody else gets factory tours. So
Okay.
when
That
you're
was
in
going to be
town-
one of my questions.
Me too.
we don't. I mean, our insurance regulations really don't allow for tours and stuff, but that is one of the perks of being an Owners Club member. If you give us a little bit of notice and you're coming through, we'll give you a factory tour. So
So cool.
Very, very nice.
Something else I
Guess I'm
saw
gonna have
in
to
one of
sign
the.
up.
I was watching a YouTube video of your facility, and someone pointed out that you have papers on your walls that are like from the 1950s, 1970s. Someone made like a note, a little cheat sheet of dimensions, and it's like yellow and still on the wall.
Yep.
And I really identified with that because there's things sometimes we do as a temporary measure, or we just write it down real quick on a piece of wood, and that piece of wood we keep it forever. And it was cool to see that was happening there. So neat.
Today I was looking at something on the MFT table at work, and I went, And I was looking at the measurement. I go, what was that for? And I go, oh, that was last year. I made some for the office. And I went, oh, that was the measurement I wrote down on the table. Which
What's
is
your
funny,
long,
like you said.
what's
I
your
have,
longest employee?
Yeah, we've got a sign. One of the signs that's been there, I don't know, forever. It says, I think it says something to the effect of, "We claim we manufacture the best tool chests in the world. Are you backing this up?"
Oh,
So
That's good.
it's for our
that's a
employees.
that's a good
So.
sign.
How old do you think that is?
God, that's gotta be from the 40s. I mean, just
Wow.
the lettering on it and stuff. We sell a recreation orange sign that it's a metal sign that dealers used to get that says the number 41 model sold here. So it's a vintage sign that we sell on our website and under our accessories. So people like having some of that vintage stuff. And it's just, when you come and do a factory tour, Jason, you and I talked about filming over there. So if you come over, I'll treat you to a round of golf at the country club. So
Yes.
if you come over and do some filming and stuff, you'll see all sorts of little interesting things and all the little nooks and crannies that we have. And our drying rack is probably from the 1940s. It's a big old octopus looking thing. That when we glue up the front panels and things and we put it into the clamps, and by the time it makes it all the way around in its rotation, it's dry and ready to take off and go to its next journey stop. So
Wow. What about employees? What's your longest employee?
now that's me.
Really? I mean, you
So-
said since the 70s you started, you said?
Well, yeah, I started, I think my timesheet actually from when they officially hired me is 1984. So,
Okay, officially hired. So yeah, so you're
yeah,
40 some
40 years.
a
Yeah.
while.
40 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I did
A
a
while.
while.
40 years. 40
And it
years.
was funny.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's when I was working my way through with high school and stuff like that. My parents used to take me out of school when we had trade shows so that I could help go to the trade shows and sell and
Smart.
stuff like that. And my teachers would actually know about that and they would give us homework in advance and things like that. We did a lot of boating. So we took a boat that was around the tip of Michigan, down the Illinois, down the Mississippi, across the Gulf of Mexico, around the tip of Florida, up the eastern seaboard, back through the Hudson, back through the Erie. And along the
Ah.
way, we would take time off from school, and then the teachers would figure out where we were going, and they would give us assignments to look up some stuff in the local areas and things like that. So, I mean, we were, and along the way, I mean, my dad is making stops at dealers and selling more tool chests and introducing people to, other types of things. So it was a way to kind of sort of a traveling salesman and get a lot of eyes on different places in this country.
Is
So-
that the Grand
Yeah.
Loop? Is that called the Grand
It
Loop?
is. Yeah, it's called
Yeah.
the Eastern, the
Yeah.
Eastern Loop. Yeah.
I have that on one of my list of things I'd like to do.
Yeah. It
Actually
was,
went-
it was fun.
I've went
It was
down
fun.
some YouTube rabbit holes about that loop. It's pretty cool. And
It
they have
is.
it laid out where the different times of the year you're in
Mhm.
the right places based on the time of the year. Really
Exactly.
cool.
So that you can see,
Yeah.
you can be down close, like in February, if you want to be closer, in Baton Rouge, so you can go into Mardi Gras. We went and toured like the antebellum museums in Natchez, Mississippi, and we went over to the Bahamas one time. So I got to see Santa Claus coming in on water skis. No, I mean, it's just,
That's neat.
there
That's
was,
cool.
there was just a bunch of fun stuff that we did. We were at Cape Canaveral and saw some launches of some of the shuttles while that was going
wow.
on. The last time I went to Disney World was when Epcot was being built. So, but we were around during that type of stuff. And one of the lines you were asking about, speaking of that, different lines that we've done over the years that haven't worked or have worked, we used to make makeup artist cases. So for professional makeup artists, and you will still see them in the backs of some TV shows on the set. I've got a picture of Jerry Seinfeld sitting there getting his makeup done in one of his episodes, and there's a Gerstner chest sitting right behind.
Oh, that's
Oh,
so
that's
cool.
Oh, wow.
There's a movie called Moon Over Parador, and it's starring Richard Dreyfuss.
Yep.
And they hire him because the Parador president was killed and he's a lookalike. Well, he runs around for half the movie doing his makeup, holding a Gerstner chest. So a Gerstner chest is part of a star of that movie. So
neat.
it's just the
Huh.
makeup artist chests are something that we did, and that was something that we did in the 70s and 80s. That was one of my dad's concepts. So, but here again, makeup artists, they've gone to plastic bins.
Mm.
Yeah.
What about
Huh, interesting.
hairstylists? You guys ever made like chests for like hairstylists where they can store their trimmers and combs and scissors and all that kind of stuff?
Barbers.
We haven't made something specifically for that, but we've had some of our roller benches actually taken into the salons, and they're using that as a station where they can hang things on the
Ah.
side of. Tattoo artists have actually taken in some of the roller benches also, because then they can put their machine on top of it, and then they can use all the drawers to hold all of the paints and the supplies and things like that. So
What has been, I guess, what is currently your absolute top seller? And then from a historical standpoint, is there a particular model that is still being built today, that's always been built, that always is like the tried and true? Like if you were able to get one Gerstner chest and you know, like what would that be? What does that seem to be among customers in the past?
I would say the one chest that we've been building since the 1912 is a model 41 series. And a 41 series chest has 7 drawers. So it has typically been 20 inches wide all along. But it has morphed over the years, because we had a model 41, we had a model 41A, 41B, 41C, 41D, 41E. The current model that is like the 41 is the 2007. And it's called a classic chest. It's just, its name is the classic. That has probably been one of the top sellers over the years. It's one of the more recognizable chests. We've redone the configuration, so it's not the traditional 2 long drawers on the bottom and then some on the right and some on the left. We have a sets of 3 drawers up top. So there's a center drawer and 2 drawers on either side of it. That one, or the journeyman chest, which has the center machinery's handbook drawer. Everybody called it the Bible in the
Yeah.
middle. For that one is 26 inches wide, because you can fit a 24-inch scale in the top of it. And that has been an iconic one also. So those are the ones that I see come up for sale more so than not, that are full of tools and things like that. Is that model? It used to be called a model 52. That's now our 2610. We changed all the models around to basically the length of the box and the number of drawers.
Right.
So we tried to make it easy.
That makes sense.
Huh.
So
So cool.
because you guys are international,
Mhm.
right? Obviously, there's a market all over the rest of the world versus the U.S. Which of those 2 markets is stronger, U.S. or international as a whole?
Oh, US by far. International is
Really?
a very small part. Yeah. International is a
Okay.
very small part of what we do.
Interesting. So is that why you
Do you
only
know what-
offer like a small line of things internationally?
Probably. It's just, we would rather sort of streamline and focus on maybe 12 really good things, versus it becomes fractured. You do too many things. Like, we do custom items, but we'll tend to do that only certain times of the year. So we won't do that really during our busiest time. We do have a production line dedicated to OEM. So our CNC router is booked. You know, it's running all day, every day. So we make, right now we're working with a company, and we make speaker parts. So people that have the speaker boxes,
Mhm.
those have to be cut out somewhere. So
Right.
we make the speaker parts for them, and then bundle them up and ship them off, and then they assemble them and things like that. So that's a lot of the type of stuff that we have, that nobody knows about. But the US market, I mean, it's tough when you don't have distributors internationally,
Mhm.
and people can really just buy them off of the website. I just don't have anybody internationally that necessarily carries them. I used to have a couple of dealers in Japan, but that's since sort of fallen by the wayside with the advent of the internet. It's just, there's not as many people that physically carry the items in their stores anymore.
Right.
Mhm.
Sedge, were you going to ask something?
No, I was just going to tell you, you know why the USA is number 1? It's because we're awesome.
Yeah.
know.
I agree.
You know, we understand. I think we understand value better than a lot of countries. you know,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
people are willing to pay for something of quality that they know is going to last a long time.
right. And that's the key, is really educating people on these. Is like, yes, you can go buy another wood tool chest that's a knockoff. You can go to Harbor Freight, or wherever they've got those, and it's made of press board and it's gonna fall apart.
Mhm.
Or you can buy one of our Gerstner USA ones, or you can buy one of our import ones. I mean, we stand behind what we build. So it's going to last you. I mean, my international division is 20 years old. You don't get to be 100 and some odd years old by making junk.
Yep.
So,
Right. Now, with the inclusion of like CNC machines, do you have more than one, or is it just one CNC machine?
we have 2 right now, and we're in the process of trying to get another one.
So obviously that has made the building process and the ability for you guys to make more, exponentially better. With the introduction of the CNC in your building process, has that limited how many, typical woodworking machines you need on site, you have on site? Is that why, you guys have that separate room that basically like, hey, we've have all these tools, like there's just not as much of a need for them because you've streamlined the process so much?
I would say we've gotten rid of a couple of machines themselves. So, I mean, everything out there used to be a table saw. So obviously we don't have as many table saws. We don't have some of the stations that we used to, but by and large, I mean, other than cutting the joints and slots for drawer slides and things like that, that's the only thing that the CNCs do. They just, I mean, they perform those little fine operations that used to be done by hand by a human. So they've reduced the amount of error that goes into that. But the rest of it is you got to handle it by hand. A person, takes all of those pieces off and then builds a carcass of a tool chest, and somebody else is cutting drawers and putting those together and gluing those, and somebody else is making front lids. And when the box, I mean, we build it as a cube, because people, it's funny that don't necessarily do woodworking. They look and they're like, how did you get the top to match the face really well? Well, you built it as a cube and you cut off the top.
Right.
It matches perfectly then.
Right.
So it's the little attention to details and stuff like that. But that's a person doing all of that. So it's a person hand fitting the drawers. We don't make 150 drawers that are all roughly the same size and they can interchange, with the chest. That's the USA line. The international line, they're mass produced. So yes, you could have a drawer that fits in any one of, a dozen slots if it's the same size drawer that it goes into. So
Interesting. I mean, I feel like every company, if you're not getting any company that wants to grow and produce a lot, the bigger you get, the more you start looking at these automation systems and things that are going to make it better. It's very similar to the fact that you're so interested in social media marketing now, because I mean, that's the innovation in the social media side of things versus, woodworking tools. Like it's another tool that's available for people to help grow. And
right.
I wouldn't
and that's
have
something
known.
I'm kind of getting into. Our marketing person is big into Facebook and stuff, and Instagram now ties with that. But I think the understanding of doing more of the history angle from Instagram, because he's looking at Instagram as sort of another selling vehicle, which is, I view it more as, here, let me tell the story. Let me get people to understand what is Gerstner, why is Gerstner, why have you guys been around for almost 120 years? What do you guys actually do? What do you offer? I mean, we used to have a joke that, hey, these things last so long. Why don't we, bury a packet of exploding termites that comes out after, 20 years, and then they got to buy another one. It's just like they last forever. I mean, it's like you buy one, you don't necessarily need another one until you've outgrown your collection.
There's no planned obsolescence on
yeah,
it.
exactly. There's no planned obsolescence. We didn't really think that through. So, but at the same point, I mean, they're passed down through generations. I mean, I've heard of them being left in wills. I mean, we had a family that came to us that wanted to build a custom box. And when we got right down to it, they said, we want the outside to look like it has drawers and stuff, but it doesn't want to function. It just needs to be, the interior just needs to be empty. And we said, well, what are you going to use this for? And they said, well, we're going to use it as an urn. my dad always wanted a Gerstner box. So now we're getting him one. And I was like, couldn't you get the poor guy one when he was alive?
I know.
I mean,
Yeah.
but they buried him in a Gerstner. So, I mean, that's another untapped market is the funeral industry. We could build, urns. My dad
Yes.
is in a custom Gerstner. So he's in a
I
pretty
was-
nice one. So
I was asked once something on a Christmas break. One of my friend's fathers passed away, and he contacted me, and he was like, "No big deal, but could you make something for? No big deal. Don't put a lot of time into it." That's not something you ask somebody that he's going to put his father into. It was a solid week of work. Also research, and I was quickly amazed at how there's nothing available on the market. Like I was trying to find out where the sizes. The only thing I found were like Chinese import boxes that funeral homes sell. But as far as like in our country, custom made boxes for that, there's a whole market for that. And I remember talking to my son about it, who was like 9 at the time. I was like, there's a whole business just in this, but I'm not sure I wouldn't want to just focus all my energy on it. But yeah, that's a whole other market because he wanted something to put the ashes in. He didn't want it to be a vase, like a urn. He wanted it to be a wooden box.
Right.
And
something different. So
we
that's something
carved
that
on
we've
it.
talked about. Yeah, we've talked about that also but you've got to get, a local or somebody that, can place an order of more than just one or two
True.
to make it economical. Because I know
True.
what shop time is, and I know what urns typically go for, and I know what their markup is, which is astronomical. So
Yeah.
you've got to, as a business versus just one person, one or two people doing it, you've got to make sure that model makes sense to do.
Yeah.
So, and the only way that it makes sense for us to take on some of like that type of stuff is volume. You've
Yes,
got to
it
have the
makes
volume
sense.
there to make everybody happy. So we have people that come to us with custom products, and we always say you've got to have a budget. What's your budget for this? Because there's obviously things that it's not worth us even taking a look at if the budget's too low.
Yeah, because like I could have made 30 in the time that I made that one. All the time I spent figuring out the sizes, dimension, how I was going to do it. If I was doing 30, it would have made more sense. So I
Well-
totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You also got to look at this way. You'll always have a market,
That's
true.
true. That is
That's
true.
true.
Never ending supply.
even during a recession or
Mhm.
some economic downturn. People are always dying.
Yep.
That's so true.
Yep.
So true.
So that's something that we talk about also is trying to tap into that market and doing some design things. And, that just takes going to their trade shows and coming up with a couple of ideas and presenting them, and you're off and running.
That's
so.
awesome. Evolving,
Well-
always evolving.
You have
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
because if I was still trying to count on machinists and tool and die makers buying our boxes, I would have gone by the wayside like the rest of the guys in the 1960s. Because
Yeah.
there's how many, we talked about it at the Muck Challenge, the trades. The trades is just something that we need to have a revival in. We need people to, know how to make and do things. I walked in when I first met my husband. I walked into his house, and I told Jason this. I had was kind of looking around, and I looked in his garage, and I said, "Why do you have a compound miter saw?" And he goes, "Why do you know what that is?" I said, "Well, let me tell you what I do for a living."
That's
So-
awesome.
Funny.
but my dad, he taught me. We used to work in the shop on the weekends. I made a tack trunk when I had a horse. So, there's a
Mhm.
market to do that also.
Right.
Because,
Oh, yeah.
people that have equine animals, they're hay machines.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of
So-
accoutrements that come with that. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why we've largely focused on hobbies. So, we've
Right.
got little tote boxes. People could use those. They're a small little box that we have given actually as wedding gifts personally. What we'll do is we'll take one of our smaller boxes and we'll fill it with just a small assortment of tools and give that to a couple as a housewarming or a wedding gift. And we've
Mhm.
had people tell us, 30, 40 years later, they're like, "Oh my God, I don't remember hardly my wedding day, but I still have that tool chest."
Oh, that's neat.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we are approaching, I can't believe it's already 6:50. We are approaching the end of our recording, which is a shame because I feel like we could continue going down this rabbit hole for like another
Well, have
hour.
me on another time.
Well,
It's hard to
For
do 100
sure.
years.
Oh, for sure.
I do actually have one question. I literally had a whole list of questions. There was probably 12 or 13 things that I wanted to cover. You've either covered every one or one of us has asked that question. But I thought this would be an interesting one to close out the episode on. And that is like, what are your goals? And I kind of know some of this based on our conversations, but what would you say your goals for the company are over the next 5 years? Like where do you want to see it go?
I would like to see Gerstner become a little bit more of a well-known sort of household brand. That's going to take some doing, but I think through social media, actually, this is a good place to announce this also, is we are starting an affiliate program. So with the advent of social media and things, we are starting up an affiliate program, and details of that are going to be coming on our website soon. And we've made it fairly attractive to be able to do that, but we need to get sort of Gerstner ambassadors, out there and helping spread the word. Tapping into some of our former people, asking past celebrities who have bought our items, do they mind if we make their names public and things like that? And can we lean into, hey, the desire to have one of these? I mean, everybody knows what a Rolex is. A Rolex, is a symbol of something. Gerstner has been a symbol of something, but only to tradespeople. I think, if we can get the word out that Gerstner doesn't just make toolboxes, we make something to house, it's a place for everything for a place and everything in its place. I mean, Harry used to say that all the time. So it's, if you have something to organize, we have something for you to organize it in.
Well, there's a t-shirt idea.
Yep.
That saying, that's a great t-shirt
It's,
idea.
that was an old Shaker saying, and that's how I live my life: a place for everything and everything in its place. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I cannot
Cool.
believe that we got through that entire list of questions. That was very great. Like, thank you so much. We have not had a guest on here in a long time, and having people like yourself on the podcast, like, I think this is going to go over really, really well with our audience and the people that are listening. And you'll probably have some new customers. One of them, I can almost guarantee you, if he doesn't already own one, it's going to be Dirk from Dayton.
Dayton.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
He's the mayor of Dayton.
Yeah.
Hey,
Because
and also,
I'm his
ahead.
campaign manager.
I was just going to say, Dirk knows something about everything in Dayton to include your company. And as soon as I posted about it, he was very quick to let me know. Proudly made right here in Dayton. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm aware." So he's a great guy. I'm sure you'll meet him one of these days.
Yeah.
and also, just to point out, because I struggled when I was looking on YouTube, I was spelling it wrong. So it's Gerstner. I was leaving
Gerstner.
I was leaving a letter out, and I was so
The
it's
S and the
important.
T. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, but it's
yes.
pronounced Gerstner.
Gerstner. Yes,
It sounds like
yes.
SH, but it's ST.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Gerstner.
And once
Yes.
upon a time, I believe it was pronounced Gerstner.
Gerstner.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Because
French.
Gerstner is from, no, it's actually from Germany.
Germany.
German.
Black
That's
Forest
why I
region
like
of
it so
Germany.
much.
Mm.
Now it
There you
makes
go.
sense.
Yeah, you were stationed
Yeah.
over there, weren't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
I by day I work for a German manufacturer, so I know the whole gig.
Engineering. Yep. Engineering, attention to detail, craftsmanship.
Absolutely.
We actually patented recently. We got it trademarked. Well, not patented, but we trademarked the phrase "craftsmanship lives."
Oh, that's
cool.
great.
Ooh, nice.
Good.
I like that.
Another
like
great
it.
shirt.
Yes.
It's on the back
For
of our shirts already.
Nice.
Hey.
Well, everybody
that.
listening, we hope that you enjoyed
Bye-bye.
this episode. I know, don't do it yet. I know we
It's a little
did.
contest they have.
Yeah, you'll
Who
see
can
it in
say
just a
it
second,
first?
Kim.
Bye-bye.
Kim, thank you again so much for taking the
thank
time.
you.
Not a problem. Anytime.
Thank you. This
Yes,
is
thank you.
amazing.
It's really
It's great.
Happy
I know
to
what
do
the
it.
diamond mirror is now.
Yep.
Well, I have tons more little tidbits. So if you guys ever want to
Oh.
delve into Gerstner again, just ring me up and I'd be happy to do it.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Again, thank you so much. We
Thank you.
greatly appreciate it. Bye-bye.